will request Priya to escort Justice Singhvi to the dais, and I will also request Mr. Anil Diwan and Mr. Rao to kindly come on the dais. Good evening, everybody. First of all, let me welcome Justice G.S. Singhvi. Sir, the entire audience and all of us are as fresh as we started yesterday in the morning to hear your views today. All are sitting in anticipation. We had very intensive two-day deliberations, and I'm very happy to inform that we have delegates here today from 21 states. As a part of this convention, from Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, to Northeast, Manipur, Meghalaya, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, UP, Uttaranchal. Nearly every state is represented. This is the second rule of law convention. We started this convention last year, and the attempt has been to discuss threadbare the areas of law or current concerns which are at the foundation of the rule of law. So this time, our concern was how to strengthen the judicial institution, also to see how various regulatory frameworks which have been put in place are functioning and what is required to be done further. Our attempt as the premier voluntary body of lawyers in India is to make every effort to have threadbare discussions and debate and come up with constructive suggestions to strengthen the institution of rule of law and also to criticize what we find deficient. Last 2 days have been very, very productive, and the fact that even in the last session, nearly everybody who was with us at the beginning of the convention is staying back is a testimony to the level of deliberations which took place. Now, without taking any further time, I will request our President, Mr. Anil B. Diwan, to commence the proceedings and give his views.
Justice Singhvi, it's a great privilege and a pleasure to welcome you today for the valedictory session. I think today in the judiciary, you have become a symbol trying to bring in good governance. We had other icons in the past like Venkatacharya, Verma, etc. I think that legacy is going to be continued through your efforts. What is happening in India? In 1947, 1 rupee was equal to $1. In 85, it was 12.36. In 2004, 45. And today, it's about 64, 65. This is an indication of the economic downturn which we are facing. High inflation in the prices of essential commodities are adversely affecting the poor and the salaried classes. It's all right for lawyers, middle class, upper middle class. But what is going to happen to the poor person who cannot get his food essentials at reasonable prices? This is a very, very dangerous situation for any polity. And you will have distortions. Now look at the salaried class. The salaried class, as all economists tell us, if there is high inflation, there is an enormous incentive to be corrupt. How does a small person drawing a fixed salary educate his children, look after medical health, look after house rent allowance, electricity, water, etc.? So this inflation undermines morality in all salaried and fixed income groups. This is a great challenge for the country. And this is a distress which we must all try and do our best. Now, what is governance today? And I read, I'm not saying of my own opinion, but what is the opinion of the President of India? Corruption, as you have seen, has eaten into the vitals of the country. On 14th of August, Sri Pranab Mukherjee said this, and I quote, "Institutions are a mirror of national character. Today, we see widespread cynicism and disillusionment with governance and functioning of institutions in our country. Our legislatures look more like combat arenas rather than fora that legislate. Corruption has become a major challenge. The precious resources of the nation are being wasted through indolence and indifference. It is sapping the dynamism of our society. We need to correct this regression," unquote. And then he went on further to say, recalling the words of Mahatma Gandhi, the President said this again, Mahatma Gandhi is advised to avoid, in quote, politics without principles, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, and worship without sacrifice. He recalled these words from the President, and I think we should all think about this in a very, very introspective way. What can we contribute? Now, let me give you a few examples of not only what the President has said, but what ministers are saying. There is a groundswell amongst the political class to blame the economic ills partly or predominantly to the judiciary. And this is what one minister said to a news channel. Instead of taking remedial measures, this is an attack which is being carried on checks and balances in the executive. And I quote a very eminent minister, "The center was not solely responsible for the situation, and a number of judgments passed by the Supreme Court against the government have also contributed to the situation." He blamed the judiciary for imposing a ban on mining. Another minister, while introducing an amendment to the Representation of People Act, said in Parliament, "There is a general negative perception in the country that all politicians are criminals. ... Courts are enthusiastic to prove us so." Now, this is not expected of responsible ministers in Parliament. They are doing their duty, the courts are doing their duty, and in the discharge of their duty, if some unpleasant things are happening, well, that's part of judicial review. That's part of good governance being assured or scrutinized. Now, therefore, these attacks are not only against the judiciary, but also against CAG, which has given a lot of reports. Sometimes there is a criticism also of the CEC. So under these circumstances, friends, the rule of law is under grave threat. Because each department of government, the four pillars, legislature, executive, and judiciary, it is doing its task. There is no point in a general attacks of this type at all, and I think this should not disturb, and we should all strive to see and support movements, views, and opinions which are contrary to what is being said. Because instead of following the advice of the President of India, please introspect, please go in for good governance, please treat corruption as a problem to be solved. Instead of that, why point fingers at other checks and balances under the Constitution? Friends, we are very anxious to hear the Justice Singhvi, but let me share with you what Dr. Rajendra Prasad said in his speech for adopting the Constitution on 26th of November, 1949. The President of the Constituent Assembly was Rajendra Prasad then. He says, and this is very significant, after all, a constitution is like a machine. It's a lifeless thing. It acquires life because of the men who control it and operate it. And India needs today nothing more than a set of honest men who will have the interest of the country before them. And he significantly adds, in India today, I feel that the work that confronts us is even more difficult than the work which we had when we were engaged in the struggle. We did not have then any conflicting claims to reconcile, no loaves and fishes to distribute, no powers to share. We have all these now, and the temptations are really great. Would to God that we shall have the wisdom and the strength to rise above them and to serve the country which we have succeeded in liberating. I hope last 2 days' discussions and sessions will now invigorate us to eschew self-interest and serve the great causes and the great constitutional values of our Constitution. Thank you.
Now I will call upon Justice G. Singhvi to deliver the valedictory address.
Respected Sri Anil Diwan, respected Sri P.P. Rao, respected Sri Surabji, Sri Nariman, Sri Desai, dear Sri K.N. Bhatt and Krishnamani ji, other friends and young students. In the journey of last 43 years plus, I have never felt as overwhelmed as today. As a lawyer, I argued my cases fearlessly, irrespective of who was the opponent. As a judge, I tried to decide the case after hearing the arguments. At times, the wizards of the profession, and at times, youngsters. But I never faced this battery of wizards who are present in the hall. I am grateful to Mr. Diwan for having given me this opportunity to be here in the august presence of luminaries of the profession to discuss an issue which is more than burning the nation, the rule of law. All of us know that India is the seventh largest country by area, second most populous country in the world, with roughly 1/6 of its population of about 1.25 billion. It has crossed that quarter. It is the world's largest democracy. It is one of the world's oldest civilization, yet a very young nation. Democratic system in India was introduced with noble intention, government of the people, for the people and by the people. The emergence of India as a democratic country was welcomed by all countries. Since then, India has become one of the most sought after democratic countries, which is peace-loving and where development progress go on at a steady pace despite various odds like large population, poverty, natural calamities, etc. When the constitution was being drafted, the members of the Constituent Assembly were very much mindful of the challenges of governance and societal changes which were likely to take place in the coming decades. The debates of the Constituent Assembly, which lasted for 3 years, culminated in evolving a set of rights recognized persons of various castes, creeds, transcending national, social, and cultural boundaries. The framers of the Constitution had shown great statesmanship and farsightedness. At the conclusion of the debate, Dr. Ambedkar, chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee, remarked, I quote him, I feel that the Constitution is workable. It is flexible. It is strong enough to hold country together both in peacetime and wartime. Indeed, if I may say so, if things go wrong, under the new constitution, the result will not be that we had a bad constitution. What we will have to say is that the man was vile. Mr. Diwan just quoted Dr. Rajendra Prasad, his speech in 1949. But in all these 4 decades, I have been fascinated by the message which Dr. Rajendra Prasad gave on 15th of August 1947. I wish all the students of law, those who are in the colleges, those who are in the profession, those who are in parliament, read that message at least once in a week. They will understand what India is. What was the vision of one of the greatest son of the soil? Unfortunately, we have failed. The most important message, or rather part of the message, was Dr. Rajendra Prasad that actually addressed to every section of the community. The politicians, the bureaucrats, the army, the industrialists, agriculturists, workers, and who not. But the core of his message was, we must now treat ourselves as servants of the people. And in that was a message. Unfortunately, we forgot. Whether it be parliament, whether it be bureaucracy, or whether it be judiciary. We innovated the idea of power. Power of parliament, power of bureaucracy, executive, and power of the judiciary. And in the process, we forgot that all of us are servants of the people. We have been entrusted with the task of serving the common man. And the second mistake which was committed, I would call it a blunder, that those who taught Constitution to the students did not teach the preamble properly. I would request the students of law to go back to their college and read again the preamble. There was not only a declaration of India into a sovereign democratic republic, but there was something more which all of us have forgotten. We resolved, we made a pledge, we took an oath. We will ensure justice, social, economic, and political, freedoms, equality, and dignity. Every day in the courts we debate on these issues. But I wonder how after 65 years, when a bill is introduced in the parliament, there is an admission by all that 80% population of the country is still below poverty line. There is an admission that all don't get food twice a day, meal twice a day. This is a clear-cut admission. And in that background, we are required to debate, discuss the strengthening of rule of law. Before I proceed further, I would just like to make a slight digression for one moment. 3 days back, there was a verdict by a court